Nice.
Nice.
Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
Good, too. Hey, everybody out there on the internet. I'm Jordan Leibel. That's Jonny Tobin. Welcome to another piano lesson. Today, we are doing a really cool lesson topic on ear training. And Johnny, your sort of particular technique to learn sort of a song by ear as sort of quick as possible.
Yeah.
And just kind of the bare essentials of that.
Totally, yeah. I think ear training is a great way to improve your musicianship, and it's great for learning tunes, and I think having a good ear really brings people kind of to the next level of musicianship, and I think it's really important for everybody to have, you know, good ear training and to that to be something you work on. So.
Yeah, and you know what I find really interesting about ear training from the perspective as an instructor is you sometimes get, you know, some people think, oh, you know, ear training is just one of those innate talents. You know, you either have it or you don't. And I don't know, I just don't know how to listen to it. Like, you do have that talent. You just need to figure out what it is that you're listening for when you're learning a song by ear. So that's what this lesson is for. So
totally.
Lend us your ears. And if you have any questions, put it in the ask a question box below, and we'll answer it on stream, or after the lesson, get at me and I will answer it over email. So first things first, like what's the sort of the fundamental, before you're even like learning a song, say we're just learning major keys versus minor keys, what are the things that you listen out for to determine if a song, if you're playing a major sort of scale or a minor?
Well, I sort of listen for intervals, you know, like the scale, just the major scale itself is like whole tone, semitone, whole tone, whole tone, whole tone. And just kind of that spacing between the notes, you know, this sound versus this sound. This sound is a bit more open than this sound, you know. There's a bigger interval between the notes than this. And in general, you know, a major chord is happier sounding.
Yeah.
Minor chord is sad sounding or more a little darker sounding. That's kind of a general way I sort of differentiate between that. I also I listen for like where the chords are going to, and I think knowing some cliched progressions like that's a very common progression. So if you've heard that progression a lot, then the sound of that is in your head, so you can recognize that and identify that. So I think the key for a lot of ear training stuff is just really knowing what something sounds like.
Right.
I know that this is a minor chord with a minor 7 in it.
So when you like just break down what the notes of that chord is and what determines that as a minor chord, and where does the 7 come from?
Totally. So this is the minor 3rd.
Yeah.
The 5th, and then this is the minor 7. So you know, if you're listening for a chord like that, you can kind of the first thing you want to identify is whether a chord is major or minor. So you have this chord, there's no 3rd, so often when I'm listening for something, I kind of try to sing and hear what I'm doing, so it's like there's no 3rd in there, so if somebody were to play that, I'd be like da 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 da.
Right.
Da, 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 da. That's the major 3rd right there. So, and then once you figure out what that is, then you're listening for the other notes. So, so if somebody puts this in, this is the dominant 7, and it kind of has like a bright, happy sound. There's also this, which is the major 7 instead. It's just a slightly more open sound, and again, it's about those intervals. So this is a bigger interval than this one is.
Yeah.
So often I'm listening for things like that, and kind of I might sing like
Right.
you know, to try to kind of figure out. It's sort of a thing where I think you really have to sit at the piano and just look at what notes there are and just play it and get the sound of it in your head.
Well, the thing that I always find, that I always just keep in mind whenever I'm trying to practice my ear training is a big, like, you can have 2 very different sounding chords. Even just on the fundamental level, you have a major triad and a minor triad, and they sound very different, but they're only a semitone apart from each other. It's only in that it's a major third or a minor third, which is just a semitone below the major third, and that changes the whole sound. So when you talk about singing, you know, recently I've started incorporating just singing, like I'll play a note and then I'll sing the major third above that note, just like what you were doing there, and sing the minor third. And I find once you kind of get that sound in, like you know what it feels like to sing it, you know what I mean? You kind of know the vibration or whatever in your body of what it feels like to sing an interval. Then all of a sudden you have this other thing that you can kind of use to help memorize what that sounds like for ear training, right?
I think that's really important, like internalizing it so that, you know, you can actually start hearing music in your head without a piano, and that can actually help you to compose stuff too. But you're just able to sing, you know, if somebody came up to you and they're like, sing a major triad, and you went, da, 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 you know, I can just do that because I know what that sound is. I think that's great, you know, putting a major third or different interval on top. So maybe I'll just demonstrate. So be like here. Ba, 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 ba. That's the minor third.
Okay.
Ba, 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 ba. So you can kind of practice like different intervals. You could play it first and then sing it back, you know.
Right.
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. And just you know, it might feel silly doing it at first, but I think it can be a great way, you know, to practice different intervals and really getting the sound of that in your head. Yeah.
And do you think there's a difference between practicing these intervals in terms of their solid chords versus broken? Like, do you listen for different things?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you're playing a chord, if you're playing this versus this, I find it a bit different because with this you're hearing one thing. Everything's happening at the exact same time. But with this, it's broken, so you can actually, I find it a little bit easier to figure out the individual notes. Like if you weren't looking at the piano and somebody just played that, you can kind of hear, you're hearing this, the root, then you're hearing the 5, then you're hearing the root again, and then you're hearing the third. Whereas if you just doing that, it's all kind of at once, and it can be hard to separate those sounds. So.
Well, what I do and what I would recommend anyone out there do is start off with it broken, because then it's almost like, I don't know, like if I had to make an analogy, it'd be like, what's the best way to like learn to make a cake or something? And it's like, okay, you got your ingredients, like don't try to like take the complete cake apart, right? Like
exactly.
put the egg in the bowl and the sugar and whatever.
Totally.
So like
piece by piece.
Piece by piece it together, and then you'll have the full chord, and then eventually you can start identifying what that cake is made out of by the complete cake. Anyways.
Totally. Great analogy.
So we have a couple well-known songs that we're going to play little snippets of today. And you're just going to show your process for learning how to identify just the root note of those progressions or any melodic info, and just kind of, you know, kind of like put your skills to the test here.
Sure, sounds good. I'll do my best.
Yeah, let's do it. So, first one that we're going to do, I'm not even going to tell you what the song is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mystery. You'll know it. You'll recognize it. Yeah.
If I don't, it'll just be good ear training.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Okay, so you ready to go?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Let's do this. Sorry, could you just stop it?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, when I'm trying to figure out a song, the first thing I do before I even figure out the chords or the riffs or anything is figure out what key it's in. Then I have a starting place to go from. So could you just play the first little, like, first second of it so I can hear the bass note?
Yep.
Okay, stop it. Ba. So that was the first note. Ba. Ba. So that's our root. So we're in D.
Okay.
So I just got the bass note from that.
Yeah.
I think in any song, listening for the bass notes is super important, and it's one of the first things I try to do because the bass kind of determines what key we're in. It also determines the nature of the chords. You know, you might have this shape, but if this is your bass note, that's a different chord than this. So I think, as Megan Trainor said, it's all about that bass. So yeah, this is our first note, our starting note. Would you mind playing it from the top again?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, stop it there.
Okay.
So as I was listening, I was kind of humming along and trying to follow the bass note. So what I got from it was, it goes this, because I heard the bass go ba, 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 and I know that movement is a fourth down from. So it goes 1, 5, 1. Could you go from the top again? Okay, stop it. So there's that little piano riff. So I figured out that it goes from here to here.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to do is figure out what the piano is doing. So just from listening to that, you can hear the piano, and it sort of arpeggiates a little thing. So just play it one more time, and I'll try to figure it out.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So the piano riff starts on the 5. Since I have my bass note, it makes everything really easy to kind of figure out where it lands. So we're in D, and the piano starts on this note. So I'm just thinking about that interval in my head. You know, it's a fifth up from the root. So, and then it's just arpeggiating the chords. So. Yeah. Something like that. Should we play the next part of the song once the vocals come in?
Once Elvis comes in?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just zip a little bit forward there. So just to kind of reiterate, like, because you know, this is an example of, like, because you know your music theory and you're obviously very familiar with the key of D major. So when you hear that do 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 do, you hear the kind of arpeggiated motions.
Well, and it's sort of one of those things, like, I kind of compare it to if you've ever watched the show Wheel of Fortune, when they're trying to guess what the word is, you have 3 or 4 letters at the beginning and the end, and you just have to fill in the rest. It's sort of like that. So you can kind of hear certain things, and they can almost be like shortcuts. So I hear that it's landing on this note at some point, and I hear that it starts on this note. And it has X amount of beats to get there. So I'm not necessarily hearing like, okay, it's A, D, F sharp. I'm just
Right.
kind of hearing a shape, and
Right.
my brain is sort of filling in the rest.
Right.
Because I know that we're in D major, and I know that it's just playing triads. So
Right.
so I think eventually your brain can kind of fill in some of those gaps. And yeah, a lot of the time common sense really works well for a popular tune like this. You know,
Yeah.
there's not going to be a lot of weird chords. You know, so if you think it's a certain thing, it probably is that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's.
Cool. You want to move a little further here?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so here's.
Wise men say.
Okay, stop it there. Okay, so I was able to get kind of 3 chords. So once the vocals come in, it goes bum. I was just listening for the bass, so bum, ba, 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 ba. So we're still in D major, but it kind of goes to some different chords.
Okay.
So do you want to play that again, and I'll try to figure out what exactly the chords are.
Sure. Here we go.
Wise men say.
Okay.
Only fool.
Yeah, so from what I was hearing, I think those chords are all minor, other than the first one. So, again, it's hard to sometimes fully explain how these things work. But I think if you really go off the bass note initially, and I think playing along with it can really help too, because then if what you're playing matches the recording, then you know that then you're playing it correctly. But you know, if I played it and it was like, I'm gonna try playing this, and let's see if it matches with the recording.
Okay, here we go.
Wise men say.
So it doesn't. It sounds kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Very forced.
Yeah.
So I think playing along with it, you know, it's kind of tedious with all the rewinding and everything, but playing along with it can be a great way. And then if I did play this by accident, I was like, that sounds wrong, or this one, like, something's wrong. You can kind of go back and look and see, well, okay, this is actually a minor third, not a major third. So F sharp minor, B minor. And it makes sense theory-wise too, because we're in the key of D major, and this song is sticking pretty closely to the chords within that key. So these notes are all in that.
Yeah.
These notes are all in that too. And so are these. So it's all diatonic, as we would say. They're all within that key.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Even like just your kind of crazy chord progression that you just put on top of that. Even just listening to that progression on its own.
Yeah.
You can sort of tell like you're not working within one key there,
Yeah.
right?
You're sort of borrowing notes.
Yeah.
Like this note is borrowed from another key, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of songs that do use this kind of thing, but this song is not one of them. It sort of stays within that, and I think a tune like this is a great way to work on some basic ear training, because you're really just listening for the bass notes and then filling in, you know. Technically, you could just play this in your right hand for all 3 of these chords. And it doesn't sound wrong. It's not the exact chord that's being played, but because it's so diatonic, this same chord will work technically for a bunch of different chords.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on in the progression and see what the next chords are?
Sure.
Or should we move on to
Well, let's move on to another song here.
Okay.
Let's maybe we'll save like we can teach that whole song in total in another lesson or something.
Sure.
But let's move on to a whole other one here. This one's, well, you might recognize this one too.
Okay.
Here.
So just to kind of recap from the previous song, the first thing I'm going to do is listen for the bass note.
Yeah.
And figure out what key the song is in. That's kind of my anchor point. That's kind of where I start out. So yeah, that'll be the first thing I do here. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, yeah. So just from that, I gathered that this song is in C major. Kind of starts with a strong opening chord on the root, and it sort of cycles through it. So now let's go back.
Yeah.
And from the top, and I'll try to figure out some of these chords that we have.
Sure. Here we go.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I figured out some of the bass notes there. So it goes from that. That's what I think it is. And you notice while I was doing it, I wasn't really singing or anything. But if it helps you, you can sing along with it to try to internalize and match. What I was doing while I played it was kind of tapping some different notes to make sure that it was the correct note.
Right.
So let's play that again, and I'll just try to play along and figure out what each chord actually is.
Okay.
With the bass notes too.
Alrighty, here we go.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I have that. So it goes. Again, this progression is a very common one, so it makes it easier to figure out because this is a progression we've heard in a lot of other songs.
Yeah.
I think it's this. And that one I just figured out because it does a step down, and typically when you're doing a step down like that, the chords are going to be all diatonic to the key, which just means that all the notes in them are within this scale. So
Yeah.
there's not any weird. No, it's just all.
Yeah.
They're all within C major.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's that one. Can we play that again just to make sure?
Here we go.
When I find myself in.
So that little end of the riff, now I'm just kind of trying to get the way they play it. So
Right.
while I was playing along to it, I kind of noticed that it does this. It's sort of just thirds moving. And that has its own certain sound to it. Sort of that happy kind of movement thing.
Yeah.
So that's that one. I think in general, another thing for ear training that can be good if you're trying to figure out chord progressions is rather than listening for every single chord and trying to be like, hey, what's this one? What's this one?
Yeah.
Thinking of it in terms of a phrase
Yeah.
and sort of a larger structure. Like, as I was listening to this, I'm not necessarily like, okay, what's this one? What's this one? What's this one? But I'm kind of like looking for when it cycles back to the root. So it goes, and then from there it loops back. So I kind of know that the chords go on a little bit of a journey, and then it returns to that. So
Yeah.
from there, you're just trying to figure out how it gets there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you that
Yeah.
just came up. So, when you were first doing that little passage going down, you were playing it like I think you were starting off with the F as the high note versus the A as the high note.
Yeah.
So, like, from what I understand, you basically, it's almost like you made an inversion higher up of that F chord and started that movement, right?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, well, when I was listening to it, I heard something a bit higher, like I was playing along with it, and then I noticed, oh, there's actually this note. I'm hearing this note. So yeah, I think it's, when you're learning songs and everything too, it's so important to know your chords and your scales and your inversions too, right? Like, if you didn't know that this was an inversion, it would make it a lot trickier to figure that out. But this song kind of uses, this is a good example of it for a song because it uses some different inversions in that little intro bit. So.
Yeah, and it's like, you're right, if you don't kind of know what inversions are, you're like, oh man, so what, it sounds like you're sort of, you're going back to, you're literally just listening and kind of trial and erroring your way down.
Yeah, which works, but it can save so much time.
Yeah.
Because I think, anytime you practice something, ideally you're getting the sound of that in your head, so you know what these different chords sound like, and you know that this sounds different than this. It's from the same family, but it's like the sister of this. It's not the exact same, but it's shares the same DNA. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, do you want to move on to another song?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. So this one, well, let's see here. Gonna just fast forward just a little bit through this one because it's kind of got an intro. We can maybe we'll get you to dissect the intro a little bit, but we're gonna start off sort of with when the song actually kind of starts.
Okay.
Okay. So ready to go?
Sure. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, the first thing I did again is, if you notice my left hand, the sounds, I was just kind of trying to figure out, what key we're in. So I hit a note, boom. That's pretty strong root. So we're in E major. And I heard it go into the 4 a little bit. So why don't you play that excerpt again for a bit? Because I know it sounds like it repeats quite a bit, so I'll just keep it playing for a little bit, and we'll try to kind of fast track these chords.
Okay.
So I think that's sort of like a big enough chunk of it, but this one's nice because it sort of just doesn't go to too many different chords.
Yeah.
But I think what we're doing is it's major. I'm not 100% sure because I have to make sure that it's, when I play with it, but it goes from here and then it goes back. We're just going 1 4 1 4, and then at one point it goes 1 5 1 4. Those are the chords kind of within it. Play it back again, and I'll just try to play along with it.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this one's kind of interesting because some of the melody stuff that's going on, I noticed when I was playing just this, the melody is kind of like "There's satisfaction."
Yeah.
So he's hitting this note. So that indicates to me that this works.
Yeah.
This works on top.
Yeah.
I can't get no satisfaction. Well, and the melody, da, 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 he's hitting. So that note's in the melody, so you can also, you could make this a dominant 7 chord too.
Right.
I can't get no. Da, da, da. So it's kind of bluesy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that one.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
Right. So, well, it's a classic 1/4 kind of bluesy jam.
Yeah,
1/4/5 bluesy jam. But because you're hearing that dominant 7 sound in the vocal melody,
Yeah.
that kind of gives you some tips on how you could maybe make that into
Yeah.
the actual chord itself.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually, even if it's not being played by one of the instruments, I think, it's great when you can incorporate notes from the melody in a chord you're playing. If you're playing with a singer.
Yeah.
And they hit that note, they hit the dominant 7. It's great to incorporate that.
Yeah.
You're just outlining that sound, and you're making it even more a part of it. It would kind of sound. It might sound a little weird actually if you're just I can't get no, because the singer is singing all these color notes, but the chord you're playing is just a triad. So
Yeah.
It's really nice when you can match what's going on, and also in general it just kind of gives it a little more flavor.
Yeah,
when
totally.
you can add those things in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sweet, man. All right, we got one more song
Okay.
to take a look at. You actually were, you definitely know this one because you
Yeah.
were definitely playing it in the beginning of the lesson.
This one's a bit tricky because it's gonna match, or not match. It's gonna mix minor with major chords.
Yeah.
In a kind of a different way than these other ones. So.
Yeah. All right, so let's see how you do with it.
All right, stop it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pretend like I don't know this song.
Yeah.
But the first note it starts on. I was listening for the bass note again. Starts on A minor. So that's our root. Yeah, let's play it again, and I'll listen to all the bass notes and try to figure out where the movement is.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Okay.
The nice thing with this song, even though it's not a piano song, is that the guitar on this song really just is arpeggiating the notes. And like we were saying earlier, if you're playing on the piano and you're trying to figure out, get the sound of a certain chord in your head, it's so much easier, I find, when it's doing this versus just playing all the notes at once.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, this guitar part, I think, goes from that to that. This might be kind of a tricky sound for somebody to hear, but because it's going from this, and this is kind of a different sound being introduced.
Yeah.
But if we go back to our foundation units on the site, this is just using the Dorian mode. So it's a minor chord, but it has this note on it, which is kind of an interesting note.
So that's the raised sixth.
It's the raised sixth, which is the F sharp.
Yeah.
So you have that kind of sound, and it's nice in this recording because the guitar is arpeggiating this, so I believe it. So you can really hear that
Yeah.
up high at the top of the voicing. It's not that, it's this.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think it's really important to be able to, like we were saying at the beginning of the lesson, distinguish between minor and major third, and
Yeah.
getting that sound so that pretty much any time, any chord, wherever your last chord was, you're able to say, okay, this is a major sound because, and just knowing the relationship between the root and the third. And yeah, like singing, those singing exercises can help, like it's just that slightly raised sound. Getting that in your head.
Yeah.
Let's go back and then figure out the rest of these chords, because we have the first three now.
Okay, here we go.
There is.
Okay. So I think I almost have all of them. So
Yeah.
this next one's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a jump. It's literally you're just kind of moving a semitone down. The way that I kind of figured that one out was just from listening that note. This doesn't work on it, so
Yeah.
you have to move down because the bass note moves down, and that's what that chord is. And again, like I also was saying earlier, it's important to listen for the phrasing of stuff too. So you're not just listening for individual chords, but you're kind of listening where the progression moves. And this progression is sort of like a cycle, like it goes. Like it's sort of moving up
Yeah.
through those notes. And so that also can kind of help guide your ear and where it's going, because a lot of songs tend to, cycle back to different things, and especially with pop songs, there's not a lot of songs that just are weird. They follow a very kind of easy to hear and easy to follow progression, which is also why they're great for ear training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in a situation like House of the Rising Sun there, where there is, like, it's not strictly a diatonic song. Like you said, there's that Dorian stuff happening.
Outside of the
and
A
even,
minor, yeah.
I think once, like, it kind of goes from the 1 to like the major 5, doesn't it?
Well, actually, let's find out, because that's
Okay.
one chord I didn't get
Well,
to yet.
Spoiler alert, possibly. Okay, let's go from the top here.
There is.
So that final two kind of
Yeah,
like
so-
jump backward there.
This one's actually interesting because it sounds like this, but then actually it almost sounds like they're doing this, like maybe changing between
Oh, you think so?
major and minor. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Let's listen again. I'll
Okay.
play along with it and see.
Okay.
There is.
It's weird, but I actually think, because at first I played this and it worked, but then the last tail end of it, I think they're actually.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go with that for now. It's weird, but
Yeah.
So it's got this, and then it goes back to the 1. We'll just say that they're doing this. Because that make sense theory-wise?
Yeah.
It might have been like a weird note on the
Maybe, you know, it's
the
the
original.
60s.
Yeah.
Tuning stabilization
Yeah.
is a little shaky back then.
But yeah, so that's that. It's again like once you know a fair bit of theory between where things are supposed to be, you can kind of figure out. This is the 5 of A minor,
Yeah.
E or E7.
Yeah.
So you can kind of predict where it's gonna go almost because you know from there it's probably gonna go back
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah.
'Cause, like it has to resolve.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of the complete progression of that. Yeah, I think finding the bass notes is really important. Again, like I've said throughout all these songs. And once you know your key, you can almost fill in the blanks without even hearing what it's going to be. You can kind of predict, like, okay, this is my first chord. The next one's this. It's probably going to be this. This is the only one where it might be like weird because it does this instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that progression. Yeah, do you have any kind of questions? I know some of this might seem a little esoteric and kind of use your ears, Luke.
Use your ears. Yeah. Well, no, honestly, like that's super useful stuff, man. Like
Yeah.
for me, this is the kind of thing that it's one of those fundamental skills, almost on par with like just learning how to do your fingering motions or whatever on the piano.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, is this like, say you go to a jam night and you're just on stage and someone calls out a song that you don't know? Does this kind of does this sort of technique and thinking work in a live jam context?
Yeah, it does generally. Like, if I'm jamming, I often do listen for what the bass player is playing, and hopefully the song that they pick, even if I don't know it, hopefully it's got a lot of loops, meaning like sections that repeat. You know, whether it's a 4-bar or an 8-bar phrase, and so, you know, once I kind of figure out the key, I figure out where the bass movement is and like the different chords. So yeah, for example, if there was a song and it's like starts on this and say that's the whole song, it's just a riff like that.
Yeah.
I might not be able to get the exact riff immediately, but I'm listening for like what's the bass note and what's the strongest. Usually the root note of the key that you're in is usually the one that sounds the most anchored. So in that case, it's that ba ba. So I'm like, okay. So I'm playing and playing, and then I'm playing a bunch of random notes, you know, try to kind of peck my way and figure out. So I figure, okay, so that's the bass note of the song. And then from there, once you get that, figure out A minor. Yeah, I figure out it's A minor, and then from there, often I'll be listening for if there's a guitar player, what he or she is playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, to me, it's all comes down to what the bass notes are.
Yeah.
Because that really determines what the chords are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answered that question.
Well, yeah, no, it does, because really, especially when you're working with simple songs, or you're going to a jam night and it's like, okay, I just want to play along, so just keep your chords simple, keep them basic triads. Once you figure out your root note,
Yeah.
you kind of already know your top note of your chord, because if it's just a basic triad, it's going to
Yeah.
be just the fifth above.
Exactly.
So then, really, the only question you have to ask yourself is, does this sound like a major chord or a minor chord, right? And that's just a semitone apart. So you almost, you're right off the bat, if you kind of follow Jonny's proven technique here. If you kind of follow Jonny's technique here, you at the very worst have a 50% chance of just getting your chord right.
Yeah, exactly. And if you play a major chord instead of a minor chord, it's pretty easy to know that you've played the wrong thing. I think. Like if somebody's playing, say they're just holding that chord static. Say somebody else. So there's a guitar player and they're playing that, and you accidentally play.
Yeah.
Well, you'll know within 2 seconds. Less than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
This is, and you're like, oops, okay. So it can only either be that or that.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a sus chord, which is, we're not going there today.
Yeah.
Right now, but so let's just say for the purpose of this, it can only be one of two things. It's either that or that. So yeah, two main things: figuring out your bass note and figuring out if it's major or minor. And I think those two things will, I'd say, like 90% of pop tunes.
Yeah.
You can figure out a simple version of it by ear just from knowing those two things.
Totally.
And cycling through the chords.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's Jonny's tips for ear training. If there's any questions, get them in now.
Yeah. Happy to take any questions that you guys have.
If not, Jonny, do you want to play something out? Do you want to give another pass of Rising Sun?
Oh, we got
a question in the
got a question in the chat.
Chat question.
All right.
Oh, hey,
great.
Emmanuel. Okay, Emmanuel's got a question.
Okay. Hello.
Emmanuel says, I'm just starting at the piano, but I have a question. So can the song move through major and minor chords?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So certain songs use major and minor chords. So The House of the Rising Sun is a perfect example. It starts with A minor, then it goes to C. The bass note is a C. C major, D major, F major, A minor. So that's mixing major and minor. Another one we did was Let It Be. So it starts on a major, C major, G, another major chord, A minor, minor chord, F, major chord, C, major chord. So yeah, it totally, tons of songs use it. I'd say like the majority of pop songs will mix major and minor chords. It kind of allows songs to have some more movement and makes them more interesting. So, yeah. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Emmanuel. Just again, it's about learning how to identify those chord movements. And the thing is like a lot of times, say for Let It Be or whatever, that's a very common, if you're in the key, that's in this key of C major, right?
Yeah.
And so you have that A minor chord, which is a very common type of chord to find itself in sort of that sort of context.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, oh, if there's a minor sound in this chord progression, once you start learning enough songs or listening to enough music and learning what to listen out for in that music, you can kind of go, oh, I bet you it's going to be the minor sixth of that song's key, which is what that song uses. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Sweet. So any other questions, let us know. We can get them in here at the end. If not, Jonny, why don't you just take a rip on something here?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
See you around.